The morning sun touched the skyline of Seattle, spreading soft golden light over the tall glass buildings and the endless green of Discovery Park. The city was already awake. Buses hissed at every stop, cars rushed across the streets, and the distant sound of seagulls mingled with the wind blowing from the Puget Sound. In the middle of that beautiful yet overwhelming world, a young blind woman named Emma Collins walked slowly along the curved sidewalk, holding a white cane in her trembling hand. Emma had not always been blind. Just 2 years earlier, she was a gifted art student who painted sunsets and smiling faces, winning small competitions and dreaming of opening her own studio. Her world had once been filled with colors, bright, living, dancing colors that made her feel alive. But after a tragic roadside accident caused by a reckless drunk driver, everything she once saw turned into endless darkness. Her eyes healed on the outside, but not inside. The doctors told her the nerve damage was permanent. That word became a prison. Now, she moved through life by listening instead of seeing, counting footsteps instead of colors, searching for meaning instead of light. Every morning she walked from her small basement apartment near Queen Anne to the community support center where she worked as a therapy assistant for senior citizens. She didn't earn much, but she liked helping others, even when she herself felt like she had no one to lean on. As she approached the long crossing near Elliott Avenue, the rush of traffic grew louder, trucks moving containers to the port, city buses grumbling through their routes, impatient horns echoing off the tall buildings. Emma paused nervously. She stood very still. This intersection always frightened her the most. The sound of tires on wet asphalt made her heart pound, because that was the same sound she heard moments before the accident that took her sight. Her fingers trembled around the cane. Not today. Please not today, she whispered to herself. She waited for the crosswalk signal sound. The beeping tone meant for the visually impaired, but the speaker had been broken for months. The city promised to fix it, but no one ever came. She had to rely only on the flow of traffic, guessing when to walk. Some days she got lucky. Other days she nearly stepped into danger. The wind brushed her face, and she inhaled deeply, trying to summon courage, but fear sat heavy in her throat. Just as she was about to step forward, a speeding motorcycle roared past, too close even to the curb. She flinched and jerked backward, her heart racing. Behind her, a group of strangers kept walking, too busy to notice. Some glanced at her, then continued on their way. Others didn't look at her at all. To them, she was just another obstacle on the sidewalk. To herself, she felt like a fading shadow slowly being left behind by life. She tightened her grip on the cane again and tried to calm her breathing. If she didn't cross soon, she'd be late to the support center. And if she was late again, she knew her supervisor would politely, but firmly, remind her they couldn't make special allowances for personal struggles. She swallowed. Her throat ached. She wished, just once, that someone would stop. Not to pity her, not to stare, just to care. The crosswalk fell silent. Emma took one hesitant step forward. And then, a gentle voice behind her spoke. "Are you trying to cross? I can help you, if you'd like." Emma froze for a moment, startled by the voice. It wasn't intrusive or rushed. It carried a softness, like someone speaking to her, not around her. She turned slightly, trying to locate the source by sound. Yes, she whispered. "I'm trying to cross. The sound signal is broken." "I know," the stranger replied, gently. "I pass this road every morning and it's been broken for months. It should have been fixed long ago." His tone carried a sense of understanding rather than sympathy. He stepped closer, but not too close, careful, respectful. "May I take your arm?" he asked softly. Emma hesitated, then lifted her hand slowly. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying both gratitude and exhaustion. He guided her gently as the flow of traffic slowed. The busy world around them, bus engines, rushing cars, footsteps on the sidewalk, felt less sharp with someone beside her. As they reached the other side of the street, Emma exhaled a shaky breath she didn't realize she was holding. "You're safe now," the stranger said. She nodded, clutching her cane close. "I really appreciate it. I'm Emma." "Michael," he replied warmly. "Michael Reed." They stood for a moment. Emma with her guarded silence, Michael with quiet patience. There was no awkwardness, no hurried goodbye. Just presence. That alone felt rare to her. You walk this way every morning? Michael asked. Yes, she said. I work at the Evergreen Senior Support Center, a few blocks from here. He hesitated. That's actually on my way. If you don't mind, I can walk with you. Emma's instinct was to decline. She was used to struggle, used to navigating alone, used to people helping her once then forgetting she existed. But something in his voice made her pause. It was as if he wasn't offering help, he was offering company. Okay, she agreed softly. They continued walking together along the tree-lined sidewalk. The park came into view, lush green lawns stretching toward the shoreline, tall trees swaying gently, and joggers passing by with the rhythm of slow footsteps on gravel. Emma could feel the breeze shifting cooler as they walked closer to the water. You're not from around here, are you? Michael asked kindly. Born and raised in Oregon, Emma said. Moved here for art school. Her words slowed on the last two syllables. Art school, like they carried an old wound. You were an artist, he asked gently. I still am, I guess, she answered, then corrected herself in pain. Or, I used to be. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was understanding. Michael didn't gush with pity. He didn't say, I'm so sorry, or, that must be hard. He simply listened, and Emma felt more seen in that silence than in some people's entire sympathy speeches. You know, Michael said after a moment, my little sister lost partial vision as a kid. Not the same as what you're going through, but I watched her rebuild her sense of the world. It wasn't eyesight that made her strong, it was endurance. Emma breathed in slowly. The busy street noise faded slightly behind them as they passed a fountain in the park courtyard. The sound of splashing water mixed with bird calls overhead, creating a peaceful break from the morning rush. They stopped at a bench for a moment so Emma could rest before finishing the walk. The bench overlooked a slope of green grass gently rolling toward the trees. Michael described the scene without her asking, softly, respectfully, bringing life to what she could no longer see. I forgot what sunlight on trees looks like, Emma murmured, her voice breaking halfway through. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a memory instead of a life. Michael looked at her, really looked. Then maybe, he said softly, you need new memories. Ones that don't hurt to touch. Emma didn't speak. Her throat tightened with a strange mix of sadness and relief. Relief that for the first time in a long time, someone was reaching toward her pain instead of walking around it. She turned her face toward the breeze, breathing it in as though it might steady her heart. After a quiet pause, Michael stood. Let's keep going. You'll be late otherwise. She nodded, and he offered his arm again. Together they walked the last few blocks until the small brick building of the Evergreen Center came into view. Before they parted, Michael said, if it's all right, I can meet you here again tomorrow morning. Same time. Emma hesitated. Why? She asked quietly. Because no one should have to face the world alone, he replied. She swallowed back unexpected emotion. Then, tomorrow. As he walked away, she stood still for a moment, feeling warmth where loneliness usually lived. For the first time in 2 years, a part of her, small, fragile, but alive, felt like something might change. The next morning, Emma stood at the same intersection, her cane lightly tapping the curb. The wind was cool, carrying the faint scent of pine from the nearby trees and the far-off ocean breeze drifting inward. She tried not to expect anything. Life had taught her that expectations often led to disappointment. But then she heard footsteps approaching, steady, confident, and a familiar quiet voice beside her said, Good morning, Emma. Something inside her loosened. Good morning, Michael. They crossed together again, and this time her steps weren't trembling. When they reached the park, he described the sunrise over the sound, the golden light dripping across the water like liquid honey, the sky shifting from pale lavender into soft blue. Emma listened with a stillness that bordered on reverence, as if she were holding the image carefully in her hands. Over the next week, Michael met her every morning. They shared small conversations, simple things at first, weather, music, daily routines, but slowly, the layers deepened. Emma learned that Michael worked in community restoration projects, helping repair old buildings and public structures. He wasn't rich, but he lived with purpose. She also learned he had lost his father at 16, and ever since then he'd carried a quiet habit of caring for people who fell through the cracks. One afternoon, after work, he surprised her by bringing her to the pier along the waterfront. They sat near a food truck while the distant rumble of city buses and ferry boats blended together like an urban lullaby. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to paint places like this. Bridges, water, trees after rain. I used to stand in front of a scene and feel like the world was telling me a story. And now," he asked, "now I feel like I'm locked on the outside of the story. Like I can hear life happening, but I can't touch it anymore." Michael didn't interrupt. "My life feels unfinished," she whispered, as if someone tore out the pages and left only the blank ones behind. He turned slightly toward her. "Emma, blindness didn't erase your story. It changed the ink, but the story is still being written." Her lips trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not therapists, not doctors, not even those who meant well. They all focused on accepting loss. But Michael, he focused on rebuilding life. A few days later, an unexpected moment pierced through her growing hope. As they reached the same intersection one morning, a truck driver grew impatient, revving his engine loudly. The sudden roar triggered Emma's trauma like a lightning strike. She gasped and stumbled backward, shaking violently. Her breathing turned jagged, her mind thrown back into memories of screeching tires, shattering glass, and spinning darkness. I can't," she stammered, clutching her cane like it was the only anchor holding her in place. Michael stepped in front of her protectively, shielding her from the noise as best he could. "Hey, you're all right. Stay with my voice. Just my voice." He spoke softly, evenly, grounding her through the panic. She didn't speak. She couldn't. But she nodded, her trembling slowly easing as she focused on the warmth and steadiness in his tone. When the light changed and traffic settled, he gently guided her across. Once they reached the other side, she sat down on a bench, burying her face in her hands. "I hate this," she whispered. "I hate being afraid of something as simple as crossing a street." "You're not weak," he said. "You're carrying more than most people will ever understand." Tears welled in her sightless eyes. "I feel broken." Michael shook his head. "You're not broken. You're wounded. Wounds heal. Broken means gone. And you're still here." Something deep inside her cracked. Not in pain, but in relief. For years she carried her grief silently, believing no one could understand the heaviness. But sitting there with him, she sensed something she thought she had lost forever: dignity. Not pity. Not charity. Respect. Over the next few weeks, their walks became the most peaceful part of her day. The city moved around them, bicycles rolling past on morning commutes, children laughing in the park, buses sighing to a stop, electric cars gliding soundlessly by, an orchestra of everyday life. And slowly, Emma stopped feeling like an outsider to it. But Michael was still a stranger, in the sense that there was a part of his life she didn't know yet, something behind his kindness. And soon, she would learn what it was. The air was cool and gentle the morning everything finally changed. Spring leaves rustled above their heads, scattering sunlight across the sidewalk like soft confetti. Emma waited at their usual spot, tapping the ground lightly with her cane. She didn't hear Michael approaching. For a moment her chest tightened. Had he decided not to come today? Then she heard his footsteps, slower than usual, like he was gathering courage before speaking. "Good morning," he said, though his voice carried a different weight this time. "You're late," she replied softly, smiling despite herself. "I know," he exhaled. "I had something I needed to prepare first." She turned her head slightly toward him. "Prepare?" He hesitated. "Emma, there's something I haven't told you yet." Her heart tightened. The way he said it, heavy, almost hesitant, made her suddenly afraid of losing him. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," he answered quickly. "You didn't do anything wrong." He paused. "But I might do something right, if you'll let me." He gently placed an envelope in her hand. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "Proof that not all endings are final," he said softly. Her fingers traced the edges. "Can I open it, please?" She opened it carefully. Inside was a printed confirmation form. She didn't know what she was holding yet, so Michael guided her fingers along the raised letters. At the bottom, she felt her own name, Emma Collins, printed beside medical approval paperwork. "It's a referral," he said quietly, his voice steady and emotional. The best neuro-ophthalmic surgeon in the state has agreed to take your case. And not just evaluate you, try a cutting-edge procedure. Emma froze. Her breathing broke rhythm. You mean, she whispered, someone thinks I can see again. There is a chance, he answered. And that chance is waiting for you. Her throat tightened with disbelief. This, I don't understand. I don't have the money for a surgeon like that. I can't even. You don't need to, Michael said gently. The surgery costs have already been covered. She shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. But who would do that for me? I would, he said. The world around her fell silent. The buses, the footsteps, the traffic, all of it faded into silence behind the sudden pounding of her heart. Why, she breathed. Michael took a step closer, not out of pity, but out of truth. Because someone once saved my sister's sight when we had nothing. A stranger stepped in when we couldn't. I promised myself that one day, I would return that miracle to someone else. And then, I met you. Tears slipped down Emma's cheeks, soundless but powerful. She clutched the envelope like it was made of light. You could have helped anyone, she whispered. Why me? Because you never stopped living, he said. Even blind, you showed up every day for the people who needed you. You held their hands while no one was holding yours. And because you deserve more than a life defined by what you lost. She covered her face with shaking hands. Michael didn't touch her. He simply stood near, letting her feel safe enough to cry without shame. After several minutes, she finally lowered her hands. I'm scared, she admitted. I know, he replied. Hope is frightening when you've learned to live without it. She nodded, her voice breaking. But if there's even a small chance, I want to try. I want to see again. He smiled. She could hear it in his voice. Then I'll walk with you through every step of it. They didn't cross the street immediately. They stood in that moment, in that quiet, trembling rebirth of hope, like the world itself had paused to witness. Weeks later, as cherry blossoms bloomed across the city and sunlight lay soft on her face like a promise returning home, Emma prepared for the operation. The morning before surgery, she asked Michael to bring her to Discovery Park one last time in darkness, so that if she opened her eyes again afterward, she would see where her new chapter began. They sat together on a bench, breeze brushing her hair, the sound of distant cars rolling gently through the city roads like a rhythm guiding her forward. If I can see again, she said softly, the first thing I want to look at is the sky. And the second? Michael asked. She turned her face toward him, her voice barely a whisper. You. In that moment, the world did not feel empty anymore, it felt full. If this story touched your heart, please don't leave silently. Sparkles kindly comment below. Sparkles like this video. Sparkles share it with your friends to spread kindness. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Kindness Quest, for more inspiring and life-changing stories. Your support keeps kindness alive. Green heart.